All right, welcome into the Jets Afterburners podcast. I am your host, Liam, and I have a very special guest joining us then from no other than One Jets Drive, Florham Park, New Jersey. You guys recognize that podium, ladies and gentlemen, ESPN's very own Rich Cimini. Rich, thank you for joining us. How you doing, my friend?
Good to be here, Liam. That was a cool intro. You had some players on there that I hadn't thought about in a long time, like James Hasty and Johnny Johnson. So that was a little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, it brings everybody back. And yeah, somebody like you that you've been covering the team for so long. Yeah, it's a nice little tribute to the past and some of the present Jets. You know, I love the intro ourselves. Me and my co-host put it together. All right, so getting into this a little bit here. The big news that's on everybody's mind, it seems to be a daily topic. I mean, he has his own picture here because it's every podcast I do, he's the main center of attention. This guy right here, we're going to get right into it. You guys, you don't recognize him from that podium because he hasn't really been there. But today I saw a report that like his jersey was a new arrival on the Jets official website with Hassan Reddick. And now I've seen it's been taken down, apparently. It's been all over the place. What's the latest that you have heard from this whole Hassan Reddick saga?
Yeah, I think Fanatics was also selling his jersey now for a very cool price of $129. But yeah, the jersey sales, that stuff has nothing to do with the actual holdout. To the best of my knowledge, there really has not been any progress in this holdout. This will be now 4 weeks, 4 game checks that he will have sacrificed. So I think I counted just a few minutes ago that he was over $8 million in lost money and fines. And I think it's going to go up. You know, it could go up conceivably as high as 20 to 21 million if he misses the whole year. So I don't get any sense that this is any closer to happening than it was a month ago.
Wow, it's insane to me at this point. It really is. And do you see? We spoke to Connor Hughes here a couple weeks ago, and he said like the sense that he has gotten, like all the inside information that he has, is that Hassan Reddick, he doesn't know him personally because he hasn't been there, but the information that he has is that he's a very stubborn man, and like when he has his eyes and just, you know, he plants his feet down and like he's set on something, he's not going to steer away from that. And it seems like he wants to get paid. He wants his money. Now he's lost so much money. Do you see a situation where he's actually even going to play for the Jets this year? I know that obviously we have the trade deadline and then he has to have his the contract by week 10. Otherwise, the Jets own his rights for next year. What do you see the outcome of this being?
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing him in a Jet uniform this year. And it's tough because, you know, there's no loyalty. Obviously, he has no loyalty to the Jets. He stepped foot in this building for a couple of hours, you know, to take his physical and to do a press conference. And so there's no loyalty. And it's a tough situation. I mean, it's like a he said, she said. The Jets obviously feel that he reneged on a verbal agreement to play under his existing contract. The Jets feel that is the root of this conflict. Now, from the other side of the story, you know, Reddick feels betrayed because he thought that after he rejected that initial contract proposal back in late March, early April, that they would continue negotiations on a long-term contract, and the Jets did not. You know, they stopped negotiations. So he clearly feels, you know, enormously insulted, and the Jets feel like they were duped by this guy. So both sides are firmly entrenched in their positions. Joe Douglas has said publicly that he's not going to negotiate until the player actually shows up. It's weird. Liam, I've covered the Jets for a long, long time, and I've covered some holdouts, including the Revis holdout, which was
Yep.
epic in its own right. But this is unique because the guy never even practiced a day with the Jets. He never even lifted a weight with the Jets, and he wants out of here. I don't know what his end game is. To me, it seems like an ill-advised holdout. I don't know what he's trying to gain by this, but I think the pressure point will be November 5th because that's the trading deadline, and the Jets are just going to have to make a decision and do what's best for the organization at that point. Do they want to be stubborn and hold on to this player who may decide to sit out the whole year, or do they want to see if they could try to trade him off for something? It won't be much, but try to get something that maybe can help the team.
Now, gathering by what you just said there, it sounds like Joe Douglas never told Tory Dandy, his agent or ex-agent, according to Aaron Rodgers, possibly.
It's not his ex-agent. It's still his agent.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
then did he not tell Tory Dandy, like after Reddick and his agent rejected the first contract, did Joe Douglas say, like, yes, we will continue once you get here? Or is this all just like assumption by Reddick when he's like, hey, he offered me one contract, I didn't want it, and now we're just kind of here?
Yeah, I mean, it's
This
hard
is
to connect all the dots.
Right.
He showed up here on April 1st. Of course, it happened to be April Fool's Day that he showed up for that Zoom press conference, and he met the Jet people, and he seemed, I mean, you saw the press conference. He seemed upbeat, and excited about his, optimistic about playing for the Jets, and everything seemed to be fine. And at that point, he had rejected the first offer, but I think he was under the impression that there would be a subsequent offer. And I think the Jets were under the impression that he was cool with playing under his existing contract. So somewhere along the line, there was just a massive miscommunication. And, then egos get involved and so forth. And one thing leads to another. I think the first week of training camp, there was optimism in this building that it was coming to an end. But that just turned out to be a false alarm. And then, here we are a couple of months later.
Yeah, and then just going back to that press conference when he met the media, and he said he would be here. He said he's going to do everything in his power to make this team better. And you were sitting right there. You know what he said.
No, actually, I wasn't. I was on vacation. I was actually out in California for that, and I was not participating in that press conference. And so I wish I had been. There would have been some questions I would have definitely asked, but I was not participating in that press conference.
If you had the chance to speak to him, would you mind just offering some of the questions that you may ask him?
I'd ask him why. That's the obvious question. Why are you doing this? What happened to make you so entrenched in your position that you'd be willing to forfeit millions and millions of dollars? And how far are you going to take this? I think those would be the two most obvious questions.
Right. And it does seem like a point now where it's if he does show up, he might just feel like a fool and he might not want to show up. I think that's kind of what it comes down to at this point. He just why now almost, and then just the questions that you guys are going to ask him, which you guys have every right to, and you should, if the day comes where he does actually show up, he might be trying to avoid that at this point for all we know.
Well, it's been interesting. I mean, there've been 6 players in the last, I think 10 years or so who have extended their holdouts into the season. Last year, Chris Jones, with Kansas City missed, but he only missed one game and they gave him a Band-Aid contract and he came back happily. Interestingly, Dwayne Brown, the ex-Jet, I think it was in 2017 when he was with Houston, he held out the first 7 games of the year. And then he showed up for a few days and they traded him to Seattle. I could see something like that happening with Reddick, maybe him showing up and them trading him off. And look, there are ways. I know what you're saying, Liam, that, it's going to be hard for him to show up back here, but money has a way of, if he showed up and the Jets threw some money his way, just a sweetener to make it feel better. I think a negotiation always should end with both sides feeling the same way. kind of happy, but yet feeling that they could have got more. When both sides feel that way, it's usually a successful negotiation. So I think they would throw him something to
Okay.
come in and save a little face. But and then I think once he got on the field and started producing, I think his teammates would accept him. They know what he's done in the league. We're talking about a highly productive player over the last few years. But again, I'm going on my gut feeling. I just have a hard time seeing him play for the Jets this year. So it'll be a big story in late October when we get around to the trading deadline.
Yeah, I kind of get that sense too. And then there's a lot of reports and just speculation that he might be going to Vegas. Vegas might be doing their fire sale, which does seem a little strange if they are going to be going through this rebuild to be trading for a player of Hassan Reddick's caliber. I was listening to Nick Faria on the Jake Asman show today, and he was saying that there might be a situation where the Jets the obvious name is Devontae Adams. Everybody's saying that Devontae Adams is going to be a Jet. Same thing last year. Nick Faria actually mentioned that that might not be the Raider that they're trading for. With Jermaine Johnson's injury, maybe it's Max Crosby. Do you see a potential trade with the Jets and the Raiders for either Devontae or Max Crosby?
I don't see the Raiders. I mean, Max Crosby is. I think he's. Didn't he just sign a big contract a year
I
ago or
believe
so?
so. Yeah, that's why I thought it was a little strange.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, he's a foundational player for him. Devontae Adams is an older player. He's 31 years old. He is the kind of guy that a rebuilding organization would move for a future asset. So Adams is the prototypical guy you trade when you're trying to rebuild for the future. And so I could see him being traded somewhere. I have been saying for months that I think he'll end up with the Jets, but I mean, who knows? Alan Lazard is doing really well so far, and Mike Williams is starting to round into form. So maybe the Jets don't, have a pressing need for a Devontae Adams. I think Aaron Rodgers will have something to say about that. But right now, I don't think there's an overwhelming need for another wide receiver.
Yeah, I kind of get that impression too. And obviously, Devontae Adams makes your team bigger. And if he is here, he makes your team better. And if he is here, you find a role for him, whether you got to cut on Alan Lazard's role or you got to cut Mike Williams, which not cut them as the player, but just kind of reduce their roles a little bit, which I would hate to see. I mean, I would love Devontae Adams here. Don't get me wrong. But I kind of like where the Jets' weapons are. Like, I kind of like the way that Alan Lazard has really come on this year, where last year he looked like he was a cut candidate. Robert Sala at one point even slipped and said, we only have him like next year. We could pretty much get out of him, just to paraphrase what he said there.
Yeah.
But what have you seen so far just from like Aaron Rodgers being in the building and just like all the weapons like really buying in? Is Aaron Rodgers the best quarterback that you've ever covered with your tenure with the Jets so far?
Well, I've only had him for 3 games. So, that's an interesting question. He is clearly the most accomplished quarterback I've ever covered. I covered Brett Favre.
Yep.
Very similar resume to Rodgers in terms of the championships and the MVPs and the passing records. So I've been lucky. I've covered two of the greatest quarterbacks in history, and unfortunately, toward the end of their career, and we know what happened with Favre. He played well for 9 or 10 weeks, and then had that arm injury, and then essentially everything came apart after that. But so I think Rodgers, the upside is tremendous. I still think the best season of quarterbacking that I covered was Testaverde in 1998, where I think he went 29-7. I think 29 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. I think that were his numbers. That was probably the best season of quarterbacking that I've covered. But certainly Rodgers has the potential to surpass that.
All right. Right before we get you out of here, what should New York Jet fans expect Sunday against the Denver Broncos?
A win. I think the Jets will win this game. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it was against the Patriots. Very rarely in the NFL do you see one team dominate another the way the Jets did the Patriots on Thursday night. I mean, I don't have to rehash the numbers. You guys know the numbers. It was pretty one sided. So they're getting a Denver team that's obviously going through the growing pains of a rookie quarterback. He did play better last week against against Tampa Bay, but Bo Nix is still struggling. Still doesn't have a touchdown pass. He's turned the ball over a few times. He actually got lucky a couple of times last week against Tampa. It could have been a couple of more interceptions. And so they don't have much of a running game. They got a couple of good receivers, but they haven't been able to be maximized because of the young quarterback. So they're going through it right now. I mean, we've seen the Jets have gone through it.
Yeah.
You've seen what it looks like. You saw it a few years ago with Zach Wilson. It's hard when you have a rookie quarterback. So I think the Jets defense should have a good day. I think offensively, the Jets, it won't be easy. Denver has a pretty good pass defense. Patrick Surtain, who I expect to be on Garrett Wilson almost every snap. I mean, he is probably the best corner in the league, maybe the first or second best, right up there with a couple of other guys, including Sauce Gardner. He's really good. They lost their leading tackler this week, Alex Singleton. He's out with an ACL, so that hurts them a little bit. The Jets are a better team on paper. They'll be at home. I think the crowd will be into it. A 1:00 game, what a rarity this year, a Sunday at 1. I don't think they have another one of those until early December. So I do think the Jets should win this week. They have the extra rest. Rodgers is practically unbeatable coming off a long rest. So I like the Jets this week.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, I hope so, man. But all right, Rich, I just wanted to thank you for your time. I just want to be very respectful of your time. Just a couple minutes here. I just really appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, Liam. I appreciate you having me on, and keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you as always.